Why is it that some people seem immune to the very things that break you? Think about it. A single harsh word can leave you replaying the moment for days. One look of disapproval can sit heavy in your chest. A careless betrayal can feel like it rips away your worth. We all know that sting, don't we? And yet, there are others. You insult them, you criticize them, you try to provoke them, but nothing lands. They don't flinch. They don't collapse. They don't even carry it with them. At first, you might think they are cold, or maybe they are suppressing their feelings, holding back until they explode. But then you realize, no, it is something else. It is a kind of freedom you have never known. Carl Jung identified this state as emotional impermeability, a way of being where insults, criticism, even betrayal cannot disturb the peace at the center of your being. Imagine it for a moment. What would it be like to never be dragged into an argument again? It's to hear criticism without crumbling, to face betrayal and still remain whole. What would it mean for your life, for your relationships, your confidence, your sense of self, if you could never again be bothered by anyone? This isn't about anger management. This isn't about smiling through pain or pretending not to care. It is about rewiring the way you experience life itself. It is about becoming unshakable in a world that feeds on reaction. Jung called this discovery disturbing. And it is, because once you glimpse it, you realize how much of your life has been controlled by others, how easily your peace can be stolen, how fragile your sense of self has been. But here is the promise. If some can reach this state, so can you. And in this journey, I will show you exactly how. The shadow mirrors that reveal your hidden wounds, the tiny gap where your freedom lives, the fortress that protects your inner world. And finally, the transformation that allows you not only to remain untouchable, but to love more deeply than ever before. This is Jung's most disturbing discovery, and it might just become your most liberating truth. You know this feeling, don't you? The way one careless comment can ruin your whole day. The way a dismissive glance can echo in your chest for hours. The way betrayal doesn't just sting for a moment, it lingers, gnawing at your worth, whispering questions you can't silence. We call it being sensitive. We call it being human. But if we're honest, what it really means is this. Our peace depends on everyone else's behavior. Think about how quickly it happens. Someone criticizes your work, and before you even breathe, defensiveness rises like a fire. A family member makes a cutting remark, and you shrink back inside, even if you smile on the outside. A stranger honks their horn at you in traffic, and suddenly your whole nervous system reacts as if you have been attacked. It feels automatic, as if anger or shame or fear are hardwired into your body, as if you have no choice. Carl Jung warned us about this invisible trap. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And isn't that exactly what happens? You tell yourself, that's just who I am. That's just how I react. But the truth is, you are living out old wounds. Patterns buried so deep you don't even notice them. Reactions that were programmed long before you had a chance to choose differently. It is a prison. And the bars are not made of steel. They are made of triggers. Every sharp word, every cold shoulder, every rejection. The locks are built from shame, from the belief that you must always defend yourself, prove yourself, protect yourself. And the cruelest part is this. You become both the prisoner and the guard. Every time you react, every time you lash out or collapse inward, you reinforce the walls that keep you trapped. But what if those walls are not permanent? What if the triggers that torment you are not chains at all, but mirrors? What if every irritation, every insult, every wound is showing you something about yourself you have not yet faced? Carl Jung once encountered a man who lived outside this prison. A man who could not be provoked, no matter how hard others tried. His story disturbed Jung so deeply that it changed the way he understood human psychology forever. And in that story lies the key to your freedom. In 1919, Carl Jung met a man who would disturb him more than any patient before. Not because he was broken, not because he was angry, but because he wasn't angry at all. His name was Heinrich, a wealthy German businessman, successful, powerful, admired. From the outside, he had everything a man of his era could want. But his wife brought him to Jung with a peculiar concern. She said, "Doctor, there is something wrong with my husband. He never gets upset about anything," and she meant it literally. No matter what happened, no matter what was said, he remained calm. One evening, she confessed to Jung. She told Heinrich she had been unfaithful. Not once, not a fling, but an ongoing affair that had lasted 6 months. Most men would have erupted. Rage, tears, accusations, ultimatums. But Heinrich? He asked her 3 simple questions. Are you happy? Do you need anything from me? Do you wish to stay? Or do you wish to leave? Imagine how unsettling that must have felt. Not indifference, not icy withdrawal, but a calm so steady it made others uneasy. Even his employees whispered about him. They said their boss was terrifying, not because he yelled or punished them, but because nothing seemed to move him. Insults rolled off. Criticism never pierced. Betrayal didn't shatter him, it fascinated him. Jung quickly realized Heinrich wasn't suppressing his emotions. He wasn't disconnected or numb. On the contrary, he was fully alive, fully aware. But he was awake in a way that most people never are. Heinrich tried to explain it to Jung. When someone insults me, he said, it feels as though their words slow down, hovering in the air just before they reach me. And in that moment, I choose. Do I take these words into myself and let them wound me? Or do I let them drift past, like smoke dissolving in the wind? Jung was unsettled by this, because Heinrich had stumbled into a state of psychological immunity, a way of existing where other people's chaos simply could not touch him. And yet, there was still a mystery. How did Heinrich get here? What had happened in his life that opened the door to this rare state? The answer, Jung discovered, was hidden in betrayal. Not betrayal as a wound, but betrayal as a mirror. Jung eventually uncovered Heinrich's secret. It wasn't that he was immune to anger. It wasn't that he had been born with some strange indifference. It was that he had learned to treat every trigger as a mirror. A few years earlier, Heinrich had suffered a devastating betrayal. His most trusted business partner, a man he had called a brother, stole his largest client, nearly destroying everything he had built. Most men in his position would have been consumed by rage. They would have sought revenge. They would have spent years haunted by bitterness. But Heinrich asked himself a different question. What part of me is this man reflecting back to me? And in that moment, the betrayal stopped being just about greed or dishonesty. It became a mirror, showing Heinrich what he had not yet faced within himself. His partner's greed reflected his own buried fear of poverty. His partner's lies mirrored Heinrich's own tendency to hide his true feelings. The betrayal itself revealed his own capacity for selfishness. This realization shook him, because suddenly, the people who had hurt him the most were not enemies. They were teachers. Carl Jung called this the shadow mirror effect. He wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Think about that for a moment. The colleague who dismisses your ideas, Could they be showing you the part of yourself afraid of being inadequate? The friend who is always late? Could they be reflecting back your own hidden need for control? The family member who criticizes your choices? Could they be exposing the doubt you secretly carry about your own path? It is uncomfortable, isn't it? Because it means the anger you feel toward others is not really about them. It is a summons, a mirror held up to the parts of you you have tried not to see. This was Heinrich's breakthrough. Instead of fighting other people's shadows, he faced his own. And in doing so, he discovered something far more powerful than revenge. Freedom. But the shadow mirror was only the first step, because Heinrich also described something stranger, something almost supernatural. Not just the reflection of the shadow, but the space between reflection and response. A space so small most of us never notice it. And yet, hidden inside that space was the doorway to true emotional freedom. When Jung pressed Heinrich further, the man described something almost unbelievable. "Doctor," he said, "when someone insults me, I feel time slow down. Their words don't strike me. They hover, suspended in the air just inches from my skin. And in that pause, I choose, do I let them enter me and take root? Or do I let them drift away, like smoke disappearing into the wind?" This was not detachment. This was not pretending not to care. It was something Jung came to call the reaction gap. Most of us live as though there is no gap at all. A trigger and a reaction feel like a single event, inseparable. Someone criticizes you, and before you realize it, you have snapped back. A loved one wounds you, and tears or silence rush in before you have taken a breath. It feels instant, automatic, uncontrollable. But Heinrich proved that was an illusion. There is always a space, tiny, fragile, easy to miss. And inside that space lives your freedom. Jung developed what he called the observer protocol. Instead of reacting, you step back. You watch. You notice the words, the body language, the tone. But more importantly, you notice yourself. Your chest tightening, your pulse rising, that flood of defensiveness begging to take control. And you let it float there. You observe it without becoming it. It feels unnatural at first, like trying to breathe underwater, because everything in your body is screaming to react. But the moment you realize you can pause, you discover something extraordinary. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not even your pain. You are the awareness that watches them. And once you can watch them, you can choose them or not. Philosopher Viktor Frankl would later echo this same truth. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Heinrich had found that space. He lived in it. And from there, he chose peace over reactivity. But Jung noticed something else. When people find this gap, they begin to build around it. They develop invisible walls that keep chaos out and protect the silence within. And though it sounds like liberation, it carried with it a disturbing cost. Because the stronger your fortress becomes, the more it unsettles those who cannot build one of their own. Once Heinrich discovered the reaction gap, he began to build something even more formidable, not out of stone or iron, but out of choices, invisible choices that decided what could enter his soul and what would be left outside. Jung later called this the boundary fortress. Heinrich explained it simply. "Doctor, people can only disturb my peace if I give them permission. Their words, their moods, their judgments, these are all external events. They only become wounds if I decide to carry them." Think about that for a moment. How many times have you carried someone else's stress? How many times have you made their criticism your identity? How many nights have you lost sleep replaying a conversation that wasn't even yours to own? Imagine if none of that could cross your walls. Imagine hearing harsh words as nothing more than passing noise. Imagine letting someone else's chaos stay with them, instead of absorbing it into your bloodstream. That is the power of a strong boundary fortress. You are no longer at the mercy of every storm. You decide what enters your inner world. You decide what belongs to you and what doesn't. It sounds like liberation, and in many ways, it is. Because when your fortress is strong, criticism cannot erase your worth. Rejection cannot shake your identity. The moods of others cannot dictate the state of your heart. But Jung noticed something deeply unsettling. The stronger Heinrich's fortress became, the more people seemed drawn to him. Not those who were strong themselves, but those who lacked boundaries altogether. It was as if his calm disturbed them, as if his silence exposed their own instability. Heinrich told Jung, "Ever since I stopped reacting, people work harder to provoke me. It is as if my calm bothers them more than anger ever could." And Jung realized something profound. Many people regulate their emotions through the reactions of others. When they rage, they need you to rage back, so they can feel justified. When they criticize, they need your defense, so they can feel powerful. When they provoke, they need your pain, so they can avoid facing their own. Heinrich denied them that, and in doing so, he forced others to confront the chaos within themselves. This was the hidden cost of the fortress. Yes, it made him untouchable, but it also set him apart. Because the more you refuse to play the emotional games of others, the more you see how much of human connection is built on those very games. And yet, Heinrich's journey didn't end with isolation, because beyond the fortress lay something even more transformative. Not just defense, not just calm, but alchemy. The ability to take the very things that once provoked you and use them as fuel for growth. The stage Jung called emotional alchemy. Heinrich's final transformation wasn't about walls at all. It wasn't about distance, and it wasn't even about calm. It was about something far more radical. He began to see every trigger as a gift, every insult as an invitation, every betrayal as a mirror. "Doctor," he told Jung, "I no longer avoid people who disturb me. I welcome them, because the more they provoke me, the more they reveal the work I have yet to do." This was the stage Jung called emotional alchemy, the ability to transform pain into wisdom, to turn every wound into a doorway, to see in each difficulty not an enemy, but a teacher. Most of us spend our lives avoiding pain. We dodge confrontation. We suppress anger. We run from betrayal. But Heinrich turned toward it. He mined every difficult moment for gold. When his employees complained, he asked, "What in me still demands control?" When rivals insulted him, he wondered, "What fear of weakness do their words awaken in me?" When his wife tested his patience, he asked, "What part of me resists compassion?" Every trigger became a mirror, every mirror became a lesson, and every lesson became strength. But Jung noticed something dangerous here, because once you begin to see through every attack, once you recognize that people are not really hurting you, they are only projecting their own wounds, you risk losing empathy. You risk seeing others not as equals, but as wounded children lashing out in pain. And Heinrich felt this too. "Doctor," he confessed, "sometimes I feel like I am surrounded by children. I see their pain so clearly that I struggle to take their anger seriously." That is why Jung believed the highest stage of this transformation was not immunity alone, but what he called compassionate immunity. The ability to remain untouchable without becoming unreachable. To hold your ground in the storm while still extending a hand to those who are drowning in it. Jung wrote, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life." But Heinrich discovered that acceptance must extend beyond the self. It must become the ground from which we accept others too. This is the paradox of strength. When nothing can disturb your peace, you finally have the space to care for others without being consumed by them. You can witness their chaos without becoming chaotic. You can feel their pain without drowning in it. You can love them without losing yourself. That is the compassionate warrior. Not someone who hides behind walls, not someone who hardens into stone, but someone who walks among storms, unshaken and still open-hearted. So let me ask you, what if every person who tried to provoke you was actually giving you a lesson? What if the very chaos that unsettles you today is the raw material of your transformation? What if you could become so strong inside that nothing outside could touch your peace? And yet, that very strength made you more loving, more compassionate, more human than ever before. This is the journey Jung uncovered. From shadow mirrors, to reaction gaps, to fortresses, to alchemy, and finally, to the compassionate warrior. And now, it is your journey too. Because every criticism you face is a mirror. Every conflict is a test. Every trigger is a doorway. And if you dare to walk through those doors, you will discover what Heinrich discovered. That strength is not about what cannot touch you, but about what you can touch without being changed by it. So join us, not just by subscribing or watching another video, but by choosing to live as though every storm is your teacher, every shadow your ally, and every wound is your chance to grow. The world does not need more anger. It needs more warriors of compassion. Souls who can stand unshaken and still extend a hand. Your journey begins now. Will you step into it?